Right.
Yeah, my presentation is on noise-induced hearing loss. So, sort of like a narrowed version of what can happen when you damage your ears too much, really. So, basically, the standard measurement of noise is measured in decibels, and decibels is a unit of measurement, and the voltage as well, because it also ties in with electronics, or intensity. Yeah, so usually it's abbreviated dB, so that's decibels adjusted in dBA is noise power calculated in decibels. But what I'm going to be concentrating on is sound pressure levels, so SPL. And yeah, basically the measurement, the term for the measurement is of sound in air and other gases. And decibels is measured relative to 20 micropascals, so 1 pascal being 94 decibels sound pressure level. Now the quietest sound anyone can hear is 20 micropascals, and this is the equivalent of a mosquito flying 3 meters away from you. And how the ear basically works is I don't know how many of you can see this little diagram down here, but noise is basically vibrations through air. So noise moves the air particles, and this in turn down through the ear canal moves the air onto the eardrum. So once the air is vibrated through the ear canal onto the eardrum vibrates, sending vibrations to the ossicles. Now these are the 3 smallest bones in the ear, and they're all in the human body, but mostly people sort of GCSE stuff call it like the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. And what happens is the ossicles vibrate off each other in sort of a chain reaction, and after this it sends sounds, it sends the vibrations to the cochlea, which is the inner ear, this kind of snail thing here. But what's important about this is inside here is all the nerve endings, called the never pronounce that one.
Cilia.
Cilia, that's the one. Cilia, which causes all these little hairs in the cochlea move about, and this sends from here, from the movement of these hairs, sends information through the auditory nerve and into the brain. And that's basically the basics of how we interpret noise and hearing. So when we hear sound, it's because of the sound vibrating in the air and moving the eardrum. Now, continuous or extreme sounds can rupture the eardrum or cause permanent damage to the inner nerves and by overexciting the hairs in your cochlea. The result can either be permanent or temporary, depending on how much damage you've done, how long you've listened to it, or how loud it can be. Now, when we listen to music continuously at really loud volumes, the nerves in the cochlea become less sensitive and gradually degrade your ability to hear. Well, mostly I'm going to be concentrating on is more of the physical trauma, because most of the stuff you generally do damage to your ears because you're putting yourself in loud environments, or you're enclosing yourself in headphones, which can cause real damage to the hearing. Now, sometimes it can happen due to head injuries, so somebody falling on their head or getting hit around the head or things like that. And this is important because the cerebrum, which is one of the biggest parts of your brain, constitutes for sort of like intellectual learning, and also holds your ability to hear, which if you have damage to that can sort of put an end to your hearing basically. So the long-term effects of exposure to loud sounds can cause significant reduction in the ability to hear. More common things like tinnitus, which is what I've got, the ringing, which is just sort of like your sort of gradual ringing in the ears, which some people can get away with, some people it drives them mad, which is not good if you're not really in that. And the worst being deafness, which deafness is sort of broad because not everyone with hearing impairments is completely deaf. It's sort of like blindness, not everyone is completely blind. There's only a small percentage of people with this who are blind, but same with a small percentage of people who cannot hear at all. But a lot of people is sort of like more of a really hard to hear, but not completely deaf, which is kind of good, but at the same time not so great at all. This can be caused by long-term exposure or to a continuous loud source or a significantly loud single source of sound. So this varies from going to clubs, concerts, all the way over to like an explosion going off right near your head. And the sort of the safe sound level is what a lot of places consider to be 90 decibels. So some places say 85, 80, some places say 90. So it's sort of like within that 10 decibel region. Now, people who have been affected by loss of hearing through sudden loud noise or exposure to loud sounds for a certain period of time. So any noise above 85 decibels, sound pressure level is considered a dangerous level of sound. So, but most damage occurs between the 3,000 to 6,000 hertz range of hearing. Now, this is generally because of a natural amplification in our ears to be able to hear what people talking, things like that. Is generally the sort of the most sensitive part of our hearing, and this can cause like if you were listening, how like a graph, it would go in a straight line, but then come to the sort of the 3,000, 6,000 hertz range, you generally see a spike. And this is just because of our natural sort of amplification in our ears to be able to hear what people are saying. Generally, most conversation will take place over those frequency ranges, so that can be a problem when the noise ranges sort of go out of proportion. And this here is generally what a normal, unaffected person, somebody who's probably encased themselves in a room and not listened to anything for the rest of their life. So this is a perfect sort of hearing range, really. But this is somebody who has suffered damage to the hearing. Well, this is what happens. The spike here is what happens. Is the opposite of the natural amplification. So when if somebody was talking, what would happen is the noise would sort of go like this. So it would go up here and down here. But the reverse will happen if an extreme noise or continuous loud noise can happen. So it's sort of like a compression. It takes it out because this is the loudest part, so it needs to have everything on more or less an equal volume. So it's sort of like your natural compression in your ears are causing this. But and because of that, when you're listening to these loud volumes, the ears are doing this here around these frequencies. So continuous loud listening can cause this permanent notch, which will make it hard for you to sort of like register, understand people talking and things like that. For me personally, I find it a bit hard. I find it hard to hear people a lot. That's probably because I've got something like that similar going on in my ears. But that was just too much playing loud music when I was a kid, basically. Now, sort of comparisons of sound, the average conversation will be about 60 decibels, and standing near a bulldozer, which isn't running or anything, 85 decibels. Now, a lot of modern headphones can go up to about 100 decibels and upwards, so if I was listening to my headphones pretty loud, I could be well exceeding standing next to a bulldozer, which I can't remember the name of the people, but they recommend that it's for an 8-hour working day, this can cause permanent damage to the hearing if you're listening to something with 85 decibels or over 8 hours a day. And chainsaw from 1 meter away, 110 decibels. Now 120 decibels is somebody whistling. I can't do the thing of whistling, that's probably the loudest one. At one distance away. And that's also quite in comparison to a jet of 15 meters away, but more of a blast instead of continuous noise. Hammer stroke on brass tubing or a steel plate at 1 meter distance, 160 decibels. That's almost at the same level of sort of a low caliber handgun. Airbag deployment at a very close distance is 160 decibels as well. Now 170 decibels is sort of like a slap on the ear. So you just ever see in a lot of combat films when or self-defense thing, they say give them a clap around the ears. It's because of the sound pressure. When it enters that, causes the air to go in and creates a very, very loud pressure in it. Stun grenades used by the US Army, 170 decibels within 5 feet, so they'll use sound and stuff like that. They'll throw in one of these if they're going into a room. Create a loud bang, it'll disorientate for a good period of time, which is very useful in that sense. 190 decibels, heavy weapons, 10 meters behind the weapon. so that's not actually for firing it. Now the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, this is what they recommend for your sort of daily exposure of sound levels. Now, this doesn't apply in England because it's the United States of America, but this is what they recommend, that you shouldn't, sound pressure level, you shouldn't spend more than 30 minutes listening to 110 decibels. Now, headphones can almost get that loud, so for 30 minutes listening to your music on full volume, this is per day, so they don't recommend you go any higher than 30 minutes per day on your headphones at full volume, pretty much. You can spend a lot more, you get a lot more done in 8 hours a day working at 90 decibels, so it's all about sort of keeping it in comparison as well. These are the headphones I've got, and I was having a look at the stats, and this can get up to 116 decibels, which is pretty loud. I mean, I can't physically put these at full volume in my ears, it hurts. So it's like, it's always good to just keep it down and just play safe really with your hearing, because if I was listening to that at full volume, it would be the equivalent of holding a chainsaw 3 feet away from my ears. For, you know, if I was doing that for 2 hours, I'd have no hearing after a while. It would be pretty shocking. And this is more of a extreme end of pricing when it comes to ear protection. This is probably what a lot of big bands, you know, people who play concerts, big situations, probably popular DJs and all, they all have special ear protection. And I had a look at these are custom fit ones, but that's for one pair, so you know it's really breaking the bank for these things. But it's the way that they filter out the frequencies, and especially here, because a lot of the damaging frequencies, especially if you're looking at their thickest ear protection, which is 25 decibels attenuation down, then it's sort of the gradual around the 2000 to 6000 hertz. So there's a nice little dip in it, because these are the really problem frequencies when you're listening to music, so these are the frequencies you want to protect.